Hi there, I'm Michelle Cashmore, and in today's video I'll be showing you how I created this butterfly using airbrushing and coloured pencils. This is my first time trying out the airbrush for a background, and I really like how it turned out. I'll definitely be using it for more of my work in the future. The butterfly was painted on 8 inches by 10 inches Fabriano Artistico hot press £300 watercolour paper. This is the heavier version of Fabriano Artistico, and while it worked really well, it was difficult for me to transfer my line drawing onto it using my light pads. I think the lighter £140 version of the paper would also work just as well for these techniques. Now onto the demonstration itself. As usual, I start with the background. I'm using a Neo Iwata airbrush and spraying acrylic inks. These didn't need any thinning at all. I was able to use them in the airbrush just as they were. I tried both Liquitex and Dale Rowney FW inks, and I like both. To protect the areas I'd be using coloured pencil on, I used Frisket masking film for the large areas and masking fluid around the edges and on the small areas. I did have some issues with the masking fluid roughening my paper when I removed it though. I think this was caused by using a hairdryer to speed drying time. Fortunately, I was able to recover the work, but I'll definitely be avoiding that in the future. Here, I'm just gradually building up the colour and keeping that fuzzy out of focus look. For the lighter sections, I spray some white ink first, as it's very opaque, and then add my paler yellow colours on top. Starting with the leaves and stalks, I put down my first layers of pencil. It was here that I discovered the masking fluid had roughened up the paper a little bit. I ended up applying some liquid texture fixative by brushandpencil.com to the paper. This restored some of the lost tooth and allowed me to layer the pencils again. When working with coloured pencils, I apply several light layers before blending out with odorless mineral spirits. Once the solvent has dried, I come back over with more layers and repeat the process until the colours look the way I want them, with no paper texture showing through. I also gradually build up the details while I'm working on the layers. When working with pure coloured pencil, it's hard to lighten up the paper again once darker colours are down, so I gradually increase the darkness and intensity as I layer. However, now it is possible to get white highlights by mixing the liquid texture fixative with titanium white powder, also from Brush and Pencil. You'll see me use a brush with what looks like white paint on it throughout this video. That's me using the titanium white mixture to either highlight areas or fix mistakes. There are lots of veins and details on the closest leaf. Here I paid close attention to my reference, making sure that I looked at the shapes of what was actually there. The leaves close to the butterfly's head have a lot of different browns and greens in them and some strong lighting. Again, I paid close attention to the colour variations and the shapes of the different areas of the leaves. As before, building up the layers and blending out with solvents and repeating the process until I get the strong variation that I'm looking for. The paper under my hand is glassine paper. This is great for protecting your art as you work, as nothing sticks to it and it doesn't smudge. I order my glassine sheets online from Jackson's Art, but if you can't find it, then tracing paper can also be used to protect your work, although you do have to be somewhat careful of smudging with it. I'm now onto the butterfly. He has a surprisingly hairy body. I map out the lights and darks, making sure that all my pencil strokes follow the direction of his fur. Again, it's a case of building up the layers until I get the look I'm going for. Here is an area where I did accidentally go too dark. I used some of the titanium white mixture over the areas I wanted to fix, then once it was completely dry, went back over with the pencils again to reapply the colour. The wings on this butterfly are such vibrant yellows, oranges and reds. It was fun getting to use so many pencil colours that I'd never touched before. Applying solvents can sometimes dull colours a little, as it does lift some pigment slightly, but it also helps sink the pigment into the paper, giving a smooth look. Applying more layers of pencils over the top again brings back the vibrant saturation. When using very dark colours next to very light colours, be careful when using the solvents, as it's very easy to smudge your darks into your lights. Here, I blended the black spots out with odorless mineral spirits, separately to the bright surroundings. Another thing to note is that I'm not using pure black for the black spots. I'm also adding in some layers of red. This helps make the black areas look deeper and richer than if I'd only used a black pencil. You can see how much more saturated and vibrant the wing colours are getting with each layer I add. Again, I'm mapping out the important features on the lower half of the wing before filling in the remaining areas. Here on this section, there are visible hairs on the wing. As with the body, I make sure all my pencil strokes in this area are going in the right direction. Fur and hair aren't completely uniform, so while it's important for the hairs to all be travelling in the same general direction, it's also important for there to be some natural variation in order for it to seem realistic. Moving on to the second wing, I follow the same process as for the first. Map out the spots and dark areas, then layer up the colours until I get the look I want. The wings have a lot of veins on them as well. I spend a lot of time studying my reference for these, making sure that I get them in the right place and use highlights and shadows correctly to define them. It's important to look at the actual shapes of your subject and not what you assume it to be. Our brains are quite good at assuming we know what's there when the truth might be a little different. Again, I'm layering up the colours on this wing to really make it pop. I want the butterfly to be luminous and vibrant. You can really see the difference here between a finished section of wing and one that only has a couple of layers. At the beginning, the colours are really pale and washed out compared to the end result. There's a lot of tiny detail around the edge of the wings. I add the yellows, oranges and reds first. Only once I've finished blending do I add in the little brown and black markings. If I add these too early, they'll smear into the yellow when I blend, and they also might lose their sharpness. Finally, I go back through some titanium white mixture and add some highlights. And that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you'd like to see more and be kept up to date on my latest videos, then please do subscribe. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, where I also post regular work in progress updates of whatever it is I'm currently working on. Hope to see you again soon.